It's the weekend, and you have financial questions that need answering. That can only mean one thing. It's time for Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome, welcome. How are you? Everything good? Feeling good? I'm feeling good. You're listening to Jill on Money. This is the program that takes the mystery out of your financial life. I am Jill Schlesinger. We are broadcasting live from the Capital One Bank Studios on the far west side of New York City, Gotham. If you've got a financial question, we would love to chat with you. And the way to get in touch with us, got a number of different ways. If you are the kind of person who has bookmarked our website, which you should, jillonmoney.com, there is a button, far right corner, contact. Click on that button, and boom, it says contact Jill. It's really Jill and Mark, because he sees it too. And tell us what's going on in your financial life. If you are the sort of person who wants to email us, we do that too. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Let's start the program with Rose. Hello, Rose. How are you, and how can I help you out?
I'm great. Thank you, Jill.
Sure.
Thanks for chatting with me this morning.
What's going on?
Not too much. I was wondering if you could help me decide what I should do with my student loan debt. I went back to school late in life, and when I was 37, and finished a bachelor's degree, and then received a master's degree, and it was about $71,000 when I got out, and I graduated when I was 43. Oof. I didn't realize how much I had accumulated. I think I had to just kind of turn that off while I was in school. Mm-hmm. So I had a mortgage at the time and decided to, when they presented me with this is how much it is for a 10-year, it would start out, I can't remember, but it seemed crazy, like maybe $700 a month, and I already had $1,300 a month mortgage and $8,000 in credit card debt, and my job was going to pay me $21 an hour. And so I decided to do a 30-year payment at $340 a month.
Okay.
And now I'm over 10 years into that. I just looked at it last night. It's like, actually, it's more like I'm closer to 12. And I did get an interest rate reduction. So if I keep paying, it probably wouldn't be the full 30 years, but I still quite a bit to go, like $46,000.
Okay, so $46,000 outstanding on your student loan, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
And so wait, how old are you? You're in your 50s?
I'm going to be 55 tomorrow.
Oh, happy almost birthday. Let's figure this out so you can. So do you still own the house?
Yes, I have the house. And
how much is it worth?
$625.
Okay. What about the mortgage that's outstanding? What's left on that house?
I think it's about 117, 115.
That's great. Do you know the interest rate?
3.375.
Okay. And any other debt associated with the house, a home equity loan or line of credit?
Nope.
Okay. What about other stuff going on? Now, you got that fancy degree. You got a master's. How much money are you making?
About 70.
Okay. Tell me about other stuff that you have saved up.
I have emergency funds. I have some cash on hand, about $27,000. I have about $112 in a 403b, 401k, and then I have another $35,000 in other mutual funds not associated with retirement.
Whoa! Hold on. What is it? You have $35,000 in non-retirement mutual funds just out there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait a minute. I got my eyes on those. Okay. Tell me more
One
about...
of them's not doing very well.
Wait a second. Hold on. We're going to get there. So what's the interest rate on the $46,000 of student loans right now?
2.5.
Ugh, so cheap.
Lucky, I know. I don't know
how long does that stay around 2.5%?
That's what it is. It started, I think, at 3. It started higher, and then I got 0.25% for making 36 on-time payments, or I got 0.25% for making one making automatic payments and then another percent for paying 36 payments on time or something
All right.
like that.
All right. Well, I'm feeling good about that. Everything else in your life with the $70,000 a year, are you comfortable with where, like, kind of how you're living? How's your cash flow?
I feel really good about my cash flow right now, but I'd like to get a little. I want to get better about spending money on myself. I'm driving a 20-year-old car, and
Not for long. I'm gonna have to make you get a new car, right? So you're gonna need a new car. And how much would you have to spend on a new car?
Well, I don't think I'd buy a new car.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Maybe, like, I don't know, 10,000.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
That would be a stretch for me, but I'd try it. 10, 15.
Well, let's think about 15.
Okay.
What are the mutual funds invested in?
Oh, do you mean like what they're?
Yeah, like what is? Do you have is it a Fidelity or Vanguard? Where is the money held?
The 403B and the 401K, that's with Fidelity.
Okay.
And then I have three other mutual funds. One is Ivy.
Yep.
It used to be Woodell and Reed.
Yep.
And then it went to Ivy. And
yep.
now I have Janice Henderson. I have two funds with them.
Mm-hmm.
I have a capital gains reinvestment and income reinvestment.
Okay. Are these really old funds?
Yes. I mean,
Okay.
they changed the names. Like they weren't.
Yeah.
Their name now when I bought them.
Are you still contributing to those mutual funds?
No.
I'm wondering whether it's time for you to sell these funds. I'm sure that you have. But don't do it yet. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to call whoever has this account and say, what is my capital gains on these funds, these three funds that you own? And they'll be able to tell you that. Because you've held them with this fund family forever. So is there like a broker associated with the account?
I'm sure, yes.
So you got to just pull that statement out, call the person on the account, or just call like the general number and say, hey, I need to buy a new car. I need to know what my capital gains would be on these three crappy funds. I mean, these three funds. And here's what I'm thinking. This is my, in my heart of hearts, here's what I think you should do. I think you should sell these mutual funds, lock, stock, and barrel. I think you should pay the tax due, which is, essentially 15%. Okay, because you're not married, right? Did you say you weren't? You're not. Are you single?
I'm not married.
Okay,
no.
So you're going to pay 15% capital gains. Okay, fine,
Okay.
Great. Pay whatever's due, and then whatever's left, use it to buy your new used car, and put the rest of it in your emergency reserve fund, and that's it. And then keep putting money away, and don't worry about the car. And I would not accelerate a 2.5% loan. It's really hard for me to tell you to do that. So I think that's kind of what you should be doing. I think your status quo is good. Get out of those mutual funds, beef up your emergency reserves, put money into your retirement. Don't accelerate the student loan paydown. I mean, you could a little bit, but 2.5%, it's hard to make a case for that. And then, having a nice little extra bunch of money in your emergency reserve fund can go a long way to soothe yourself. So go buy yourself a new car, sell those mutual funds, but please, before you do, just make sure you know how much money you're going to owe in capital gains. You're in the 15% capital gains bracket. So that's it. Good luck for you, Rose. Thank you so much for calling, and let us know if we can do anything else. All right. It's Jill on Money. Go to JillOnMoney.com. You can read, listen, watch, and pre-order the new book, The Dumb Things Smart People Do With Their Money. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger takes the mystery out of your finances.
You're back with Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. The way to reach us, well, two good ways to reach us. First is you can send us an email, askjill@jillonmoney.com. The second way is you can hop onto the website, jillonmoney.com, and you can click the Contact Us button, and we will be contacted. Do you like me knocking into my microphone? Those are my reading glasses knocking into the microphone. Sorry, Mark. I make his life so difficult. And I guess you could follow us on Twitter at Jill on Money, But really, all of our information is housed at the website at jillonmoney.com. And, one of the things that we have started last year, and we've had a good run here, we've got a free weekly newsletter where we kind of wrap up things that have happened during the week that might impact you. Some of those things we've created, the content that we've created. Some of those things are what other folks have done, but it's all pretty interesting, and love to get you involved. All you have to do is hop onto jillonmoney.com and sign up for the free weekly newsletter. Now, we got an email a while back from Cindy, and she's from Texas, and I answered the email on the air, and then Mark got back in touch with her. But it was interesting because the email, for those of you who didn't hear it, was about peer-to-peer lending. And in this email, Cindy was quite emphatic that she said that they had $1 million invested in CDs and expecting another $750,000 on top of that. And what was interesting is the way she ended her email. And this is why I wanted to get her on the air, because I was very intrigued. She said, we would like a monthly income of about $5,000 a month. And it seems that peer-to-peer lending is about all that would pay any real income. And she says, left the stock market and have no intention of returning to stocks. And that caught my attention because I was like, I wonder why. And so Cindy graciously agreed to come on the air and talk about why she hates stocks. No, doesn't hate, but why you don't like the stock market. So, Cindy, thank you so much for joining us. It's really a pleasure.
Thank you for inviting me, Jill.
So tell me about what happened here in terms of investing and where you are, why the stock market is sort of no good for you guys.
Well, we were in the stock market back in 2008 when it went so terribly bad.
Yep.
And then since then, we've decided to go strictly with CDs. We also have some friends who have their 401ks in the stock market, and I know specifically a few folks that were just on the cusp of retirement, and then lo and behold, there that goes, and they've got to work, 5 more years.
Right. It's always timing, and it's like basically like bad luck, right? I mean, that's the worst part. Okay, continue. I'm sorry to interrupt.
This last year, of course, my son, we have a financial planner, and we use him basically to buy CDs and just keep an eye on that, somewhere to put it. We're not comfortable with it because we feel like at our age, with and the chaos, especially now, and the up and the down, it's just we're not comfortable with that.
I get that. That's, you know what, I will tell you that is something that I totally understand because, part of investing is this science around it, the math, over the long term, what we think is going to happen. But the other half is the art, which is, emotional. How do I feel? I guess that one thing that's interesting to me is that because you have so much money already, you have this $1 million in CDs and now another $750,000, that you may be among the very luckiest in that you don't have to feel pressure to be invested because you've got enough money to generate some cash flow. So are you both retired right now, Cindy?
I am retired with medical benefits from the state of Texas. My husband is semi-retired. He has his own company, and he works seasonally that produces a good income, but we're both to the age of this is strictly his own company, and should illness befall either of him, then that would be immediately gone.
Right. Understood. And Cindy, you worked for state government, so do you have a pension as well?
I do have a small pension. The biggest benefit that I receive because state government pay is so slim is I have my medical
That's
insurance
amazing.
paid for,
right?
And his also. So,
that's fantastic.
And I recently had breast cancer last year, and that was a very big benefit. That's part of why I retired early.
I'm sorry, but I'm glad. But I'm glad you got through it. So lucky that we have you here today. Okay, so another question you said was you had this $5,000 a month. Do you want the $5,000 a month off the 1.75 total, or off? Yeah,
the 750.
Just the 750.
Yes, ma'am.
Gosh, I feel like that's going to be tough for you. I do.
Yes, I agree. The only other thing is I might add is we live in the Permian Basin and West Texas, and I don't know if you're familiar with that. But
no.
There's an extremely big oil boom going on in our area right now.
Okay.
The cost of living is insanely expensive, but the investment opportunities, if you know anything at all about the oil business, and we're certainly not oil people, but we've lived here our entire life and know a great deal of people who are in the oil business.
Right.
So there's opportunities for investment. Risk on the little risky side, yes, ma'am, just like the money we're receiving from the saltwater disposal wells. That's a risky oil investment. So the reason we were looking at the peer-to-peers, we're willing to take that small percentage maybe and be a little riskier with it because we do have the $1 million to fall back on.
Right.
Aware of that.
Okay. So now I love hearing more of the story. It makes a lot more sense. Here's what I think. I mean, I think so there are sort of 4 big peer-to-peer lending organizations. You've probably heard of Lending Club. There's Prosper, there's Upstart, there's Peerform. They all work pretty much the same way. Here's the big risk that you face with peer-to-peer lending. You will get a higher interest rate, right? Because that's really the benefit. The downside is you've got credit risk, meaning that the folks who are borrowing from peer-to-peer lending groups tend to have higher delinquency rates. And if they just stop paying, your investment can go down. And, there's some generalized fear that many of these peer-to-peer lenders are going to face more legislation. But that said, if you're taking the $750,000 and you're looking at that as I'm willing to assume more risk with that, I wouldn't take the whole $750,000. Frankly, I would maybe take a portion of the $750,000 and maybe you say, all right, let's take $250,000 and let's say that half is going to go into the oil and gas investments, half $125,000 into oil and gas, $125,000 in peer-to-peer, and let's see how it goes. And let's put the other $500,000. Let's start to take advantage of those higher interest rates. And you say you're working with a broker for those CDs. I don't know if you really need that. Frankly, you could probably just go to bankrate.com or depositaccounts.com and find higher interest rates for CDs that are a bit longer term. And then you see how it goes. My biggest concern with someone who says, I don't like the stock market and I don't like risk, is that you don't tie up too much of this $750,000 into such high risk investments. So maybe start small, see how it goes, and say, for now, I'm going to keep the $500,000 and add that to the $1 million. Now I got $1.5 million cushion. Boy, I can make a lot of money on that $1.5 million. Let's see how putting $125,000 into one type of risky investment, $125,000 into another type of risky investment. Let's see how that goes. And then you can get a better feel for what lies ahead in terms of the kind of ups and downs, and also see whether you can take advantage of reinvesting those CDs at higher rates, just that way simply generating more income. So, Cindy from Texas, thank you so much for calling. I love when you follow up with us. It really makes it a lot easier to understand the whole story. You are listening to Jill on Money, and when we return, we are going to take more of your really interesting questions. I learn something from you every day. It's Jill on Money, and we'll be right back.
Do I invest here? Should I put my money there? Jill Schlesinger can help you. Back to Jill on Money.
You're back with Jill on Money, and we are so happy you're with us because without you, we's nothing. We are nothing. So know that Mark and I completely appreciate, this is sort of that weird time of year. We do it all the time, but we want to give thanks to you. We want to be very clear that this program is all about you. It's not about us. Although, listen, I'm going to hawk my book. Let's just be honest. Mark, I haven't hawked anything for so long. I mean, my publisher will go insane if I don't hawk the book every single time. Hey, big news over on our podcast. The podcast renamed, it's just Jill on Money, just like the radio show. So go subscribe to it. Go to Apple, Stitcher, radio.com, Google Play, anywhere else you find your favorite podcast. If you're already subscribed under the old name, better off. You'll just convert over. Don't worry. But we just decided, what are we doing this for? Let's make everything consistent. It is the world of Jill on Money. And that is what we've decided to do. So everything is available to you under the Jill on Money name. Okay? Okay. Whew. All right, here's some emails. So Robert writes that I want to buy some companies like Amazon, Netflix. How do I go about doing it? Well, I guess that if you don't know if you don't know how to do it, then my answer is probably you shouldn't be doing it. If you wanted to buy stock in individual companies, you have to open up a brokerage account. The easiest way to do that is at a large discount brokerage firm like TD Ameritrade or Charles Schwab. Even the big mutual fund companies, you can do it. But are you really going to be buying individual stocks? Is that really what's best for you? Is it? I don't know. It's a lot of risk to take. So is this your fun money? Is this your money you're willing to blow? I want to hear from this dude. Mark, get him on the phone. All right, he wouldn't come on. Rick wants to know about financial planner fees. I have approximately $650,000 in investable assets with a financial planner. They charge 1.25% per year. Is that out of line? Nah, that's about right. Under $1 million, it's probably about right. Sometimes it's 1.5%. It's all right. But I mean, honestly, if you don't really need financial planning services, then maybe you're getting charged too much. Because the second part of the question is, the amount of assets has remained in the $650,000 range since 2011. I'm retired and I withdraw $16,000 a year. Should the balance be higher? I don't know. I mean, it's a pretty small amount to be withdrawing on a $650,000 portfolio. It just really depends on how much risk you have told your advisor that you would be willing to take. If you said to your advisor, okay, here's 650 grand and I'm going to pull 16 grand out, or about 2.5% a year. I really, really, really hate risk. Then I think you're doing fine. But if this is supposed to be a portfolio that's a little bit more balanced or growth oriented, maybe you should be doing better. I think at the end of the day, Rick, what you want to do is compare what you have with the alternatives. So if you want to reduce that 1.25% by a full 1%, then you can go to an online investing platform. So you can go, I just mentioned TD Ameritrade and Charles Schwab. There are plenty of places where you wouldn't have to manage your own money, where you can hire a computer to do it for you, an algorithm. So you can talk to Vanguard, you can talk to Betterment, you can talk to Wealthfront. There are so many opportunities out there. These are organizations that have something called a robo-advisor, and they're cheap. It's 0.25% a year. So if that's the case and you really don't need if you don't really need any financial planning advice, then maybe that's what you should do. I don't think that's a bad idea for you. I think you should really check that out. All right. What else do we have? Liz sees ads for CDs and savings account by American Express with rates starting as high as with rates starting at 1.9%. How can they do a higher interest rate than my bank? Why do banks not offer higher interest rates? Because they don't have to, because we're all dopes and we stick around. I think what you should be doing right now, Liz, is hop on to depositaccounts.com. And when you pull that up, what you'll see is that the online banks do way better when it comes to rates. So it is, actually really startling how bad the regular old brick and mortar banks are. So we're talking about, I just read this, Marcus by Goldman Sachs is one of them. 5-year CD, 3.1%. That's pretty good. Synchrony Bank, Ally Bank, American Express, they all have better rates because they are vying for your business and they are not carrying massive overhead. And so I think you should really think about whether you want to pull the money out of your brick and mortar or neighborhood bank and think about a web-based savings institution. Again, depositaccounts.com, bankrate.com, they consolidate all these different rates and they compare them. And I think that the banks kind of hope for inertia, And I think that that's I think that we can sometimes be lazy. All right? Just saying. All right. If you've got a financial question, we would love to hear from you. We have a easy-to-remember email address. It's called askjill@jillonmoney.com. And, by the way, if you're looking for more content from us, go onto our website. So easy to do. jillonmoney.com. jillonmoney.com. There's a contact us button there, but all other stuff is up there. So check it out. Hang on. We'll be right back. We're coming back with more of your questions.
.401ks, IRAs, refinancing, she covers it all. Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back with Jill on Money. This is the program that takes the mystery out of your financial life. I am Jill Schlesinger. And I'm delighted that you are with us because this is the opportunity that we have to answer all of your fantastic questions. If you'd like to get in touch with us, 2 major ways to do so. You can send us an email, askjill@jillonmoney.com, or you can just go to the website, jillonmoney.com. jillonmoney.com. And there you can just click Contact Us. Boom. Just like that. Easy to do. So send us your questions. Try to give us a little bit of color commentary in addition to some facts. That's good. All right. Here is from Tom, whose subject is, I shouldn't be punished. I usually would agree with that no matter what it is, but let's see. Prior to being hit head on by a drunk driver while riding my Harley Davidson, I had excellent credit. The first bill I received in the mail after being hospitalized for 5 months, you ready for this, Mark? $545,000. This was for the level 1 trauma room where they saved my life on that dreadful day. The individual who hit me was 18 years old at the time. He had no coverage, nothing. 30 operations later, medical bills are in the millions. This has ruined my credit. Why? I was not at fault. Shouldn't there be a law against this? None of this was my fault, and why should I get punished? From excellent to poor credit. What an awful experience. Tom, oh my God, I am so sorry for you. And, you know, I thought that there was a part of the Credit Reform Act which expunged medical debt from your credit record. And I'm pretty sure that that happened. And as a result, I think that you may want to... Oh, boy. Okay. Here's the thing. I just went onto the Experian website just for the heck of it. Your medical history is not part of a credit report, but past due medical debts can affect your credit report's end scores. If a medical bill is left unpaid, the debt can be sold to a collection agency. Experian no longer displays medical collections on a credit report until they are 180 days past due. So I don't know. I don't know more of your circumstances. I'm wondering whether you need to get somebody involved. Is this still millions of dollars of debt? Do you need to declare bankruptcy and wipe this crap away? This seems like a good case for an attorney to be involved. So that's what I don't think it's fair either. I think it's horrible. Horrible. My heart's beating right now, Mark. Might be a lot of coffee, but I think that question didn't help. Natalie writes, my husband died earlier this year. I live in New York, although he died in Ohio. I found out that he had an account that I was not aware of when he died. Is there a search that could be done to see if he had other hidden money by an accountant or a lawyer? How'd you find out about that account? The Ohio account. Did you find a statement? I think you can go to the state treasurer or maybe secretary of state and ask that very question. I think they're the ones who tend to be the the recipient of those pieces of information. But I don't know. I would give it a try. I don't really know a lot about that. I'm sorry. Linda writes, she's single. She's 49. She owns her own business. It's an S-Corp. My health insurance is purchased on the individual market. I do need to keep good insurance. I'm in a platinum plan, so it's expensive. I'm struggling on deciding to keep my AGI within the limits of the Affordable Care Act to get a small tax break, $200 per month. That's not so small. If my company makes a profit, then forget about the ACA. The profits add to my W-2. The problem with keeping under 45 is I won't be reporting as high an income. This concerns me for my calculation for Social Security. But affording health insurance is my biggest bill and getting bigger each year. I own my house free and clear. I have zero debt. I have an IRA. How much over are you? What if you reported the income, okay, but then instead of an IRA, you put in a SEP IRA and you contributed more to your SEP to get you under the 45 grand for the AGI? That's a possibility. I would look at this with, I don't know who does your taxes, if you do your own taxes, but I think that what you may want to consider is instead of a traditional IRA, then you would replace that with a SEP IRA. You can put more money into a SEP IRA, so that you could declare more money, but put more money away. I don't know. That's the best I can do in terms of a creative solution. Anyone else have an idea? Give us a holler. We want to hear from you, especially for our friends who are tax preparers or accountants. Those are very widely sought after individuals these days to try to make sense of the new tax law. So many different balls in the air. I generally like to say to people that if you can, just reporting as much of your income for Social Security, not mucking around too much, is helpful. But if it's so tight, then I completely understand that. So I get it. All right. You are listening to Jill on Money. If you have a question, send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com or hop onto our website, jillonmoney.com. There you can subscribe to our sister program. It's our podcast called Jill on Money. You can get on Apple, Stitcher, radio.com, Google Play, anywhere you find your favorite podcasts. Okay, we'll be right back. You're back with Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Just send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. And you can also go to our website, jillonmoney.com. Very easy to do. jillonmoney.com. And then there's a Contact Us button. Hooray. Okay, here's a question from June. I have a 30 35-year-old universal life insurance policy that I can hardly afford the premiums for. I'm 69. I am divorced after 37 years, and I do need some coverage for funeral expenses. I need help figuring out what to do with this policy to get some money out of it. I'm confused. I would appreciate a response. Okay, June. So, number one, you can talk to the life insurance company, and what you can do is you can say, I don't know, you didn't tell me how much the insurance benefit is, but you can reduce the benefit. So let's presume that you had a $150,000 policy. You can say to them, okay, I want to use whatever the cash value is in that insurance, and I want to basically pay for all the insurance I need for $15,000. I hope a funeral is not going to cost you more than that. The other thing you can do is you can talk to a fee-only financial planner. A fee-only planner might be able to analyze the policy and also help you figure out what to do with it. He didn't mention any other money that you have, so I'm presuming this is all the money you have in the world. If that's the case, then we have to figure out a very smart way for you to approach this. If you do have other money, then it may be worth simply getting out of the policy, taking the money out, and adding it to your whatever other money you have. And maybe saying, all right, well, whatever I have, that will be the funeral expenses. I mean, many people will say to me, oh, I have this for funeral expenses, but I also have $50,000 in cash. So there are a lot of things that you may be able to do with this policy. If you want a fee-only financial planner, you can go to NAPFA, N-A-P-F-A, NAPFA.org, and you can find a financial planner nearby. All right, that's it. That is this hour. Stay tuned. We are going to have hour number 2 just ahead. During the break, go to JillOnMoney.com and don't forget to sign up for our free weekly newsletter. We'll be right back.
It's the weekend, and that can only mean one thing. You're listening to Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
You're back with Jill on Money. This is the show that takes the mystery out of your financial life. We are broadcasting live from the Capital One studios. My studio is freezing. What about you, Mark? I see you wearing a sweater. I'm sleeveless. Dang it. That was dumb. This is a program that not only takes the mystery out of your financial life, but also introduces you to some interesting characters, also known as guests. Today, we have the chairman of Dunkin Brands, which I think is now DD, right? It's just, I don't even know if it's called Dunkin. It's just called Dunkin. Nigel Travis is his name. He has a really cool background, actually. He's worked at Blockbuster. He ran that. He actually was sort of came into the industry as through the HR track. But he is the chairman of Dunkin Brands. He was the company's chief executive officer for almost 10 years until the end of last year. And he's just cool. He's wrote up this book that I found interesting. It's called The Challenge Culture. So here's our interview with Nigel Travis. What is the best career or financial decision that you've ever made?
Wow, that's a tough one.
That's an icebreaker, man.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably doing something. I've done many things in my life I never wanted to do, expected to do, and I think the first one was, and it's mentioned in the book, when my boss at Burger King, Barry Gibbons, said, "You're so involved in the business, you need to run something." I pushed back, obviously, and said, no, I want to be the best HR person one can ever be. And as a result, he said, no, you're too involved in the business, too interested in the details, go and run something. So I went and ran something, and that was a great decision.
And that's a really good piece of advice. I think that you may be among a very small cohort of HR professionals who move into the C-suite. Is that wrong of me to presume that?
Yeah, as Mary, I've forgotten her second name at General Motors, spent
Barra.
some time. Yeah, Barra spent some time in HR, and there are 2 or 3 others that I've found, but I actually think it's a great introduction to business because business at the end of the day is all about people. I also recently bumped into a McDonald's franchisee and I asked this person the question, how much time do you spend on people? Because people's a big challenge. And he said 90%. And I think most people don't spend anywhere near that.
I think it's interesting because if you look at the world and relationships and people, you have to feel like the leader understands you, hears you, yet so much of the large corporate universe is around these numbers and the metrics. And it seems to be a real divisiveness in the world because if I'm holding your feet to the fire based on the numbers, but yet I don't know who the heck you are, you don't think I have anything else at stake here except the numbers, you don't care about me as a human being, then I'm not going to be as good a worker. So talk a little bit about how you developed this concept of the challenge culture.
Well, yeah, I mean, as I said before, I started in human resources. In fact, I started in labor relations. And one of the benefits of starting in labor relations, called industrial relations in the UK, is you see what happens when things break down because you have conflict in those days between management and unions. But I learnt the bad results that can come. So I spent the first 20 years in human resources and I learnt that culture was very important. And the point I keep making about the book is everyone focuses on the challenge, but not the culture bit. And there's 2 words there. And I think in many ways, the culture is the more important word. And then when I was at Grand Metropolitan, which was a big British conglomerate that owned all kinds of companies from Alpo to Pearl Vision to, in the UK, bars, restaurants, breweries, betting stores, you name it. So we had a lot of companies. When I was there, I got promoted eventually to be the Group Management Development Director, and I worked with the then Chairman and CEO, Alan Shepard, and he had a style that was relatively aggressive but with a good sense of humour, and it was actually described as the light grip on the throat in newspaper articles, and he said, let's sit down and talk about how we want to run this organisation. We sat down, we had several sessions, and we talked about things like being action-oriented and focused on people. But the one that described that light grip on the throat, I came up with the term the challenge culture. And I said, this is a much more better way of describing it. So that's when that first came on the scene. I never really thought any more about it until I was at Blockbuster, where despite what most people think, which is we completely dropped the ball, we didn't. We missed a few things because we were being tackled by technology all the time. We were owned by Viacom, which before we started, I said overall was a great experience for me. And we had people like Sumner Redstone clearly very involved in the business. But we probably missed how big Netflix was going to be. We definitely did miss that. And we eventually tried to catch up. So the whole challenge culture concept got reinforced there, where I said to myself, if you don't constantly challenge the status quo or challenge what you're doing every day, you're not doing the right thing. So it evolved from there, and then when I became a CEO, I implemented it, and essentially the book tells all that story.
The obstacle that I see in a lot of organizations is the CEO gets up and starts talking about culture, but then 2, 3, 4 levels down, that culture is not being permeated throughout the organization. So how do you do that?
Okay, so great question. I think you have to demonstrate it in everything you do. And you're right that a lot of people will sit there and say, okay, let's agree on our culture, have a big discussion, and then nothing happens. So the first thing is I'm vigorous on following up on everything. I mean, I'm probably one of the most aggressive follow-uppers there is. And you don't have to be nasty with it. You can just say, any progress on this? But I think you have to model it down the organizations. And an example I describe in quite a lot of detail in the book is what I call the coffee chat, which is actually something that I started at Blockbuster, took it through Papa John's, and then used it at Dunkin. Effectively, what it is taking people lower down the organization, usually below director level, doing a diagonal slice of functions, 20 people in the room, and we basically say, okay, we're going to have the equivalent of a TV talk show. We're going to talk about subjects. You can talk about anything you want. You can talk about Dunkin' Donuts. You can talk about Baskin Robbins. You can talk about sales. You can talk about acquisitions. You can talk about the rumors about us being acquired. So I deliberately at the start open it up so there are no taboo subjects. I've even had meetings where I said, okay, I want to talk about the Me Too movement because it's important that you tell people there's no barriers. We then have a discussion. It isn't a Q&A of Nigel. Sometimes people try and make it, but the first thing I do is, I think that's a wonderful question. I have a view, but what do you think about that?
So you don't want to put your voice into this before you hear from the person who you're speaking
Yeah, that's
with,
a good
right?
way. That's a better way than I could describe it.
You know, it's funny because what I love also that when you say here, I facilitate the discussion, I don't dominate it. I think that that's a really hard thing for strong-willed professionals to learn. That in order to get somebody to open up to you, you got to give them space. And if you don't give them space, why are they opening up in the first place?
Good point. I think that's where my HR background really helps because in HR, if you do the job properly, you should be doing a lot of listening.
We'll get back to our interview with Nigel Travis in just a minute. During the break, you may want to just send us an email, some financial question on your mind. We're here for you. The email address, askjill@jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
Back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger helps you take the mystery out of your finances.
You're back with Jill on Money, and we are in the midst of an interview with Nigel Travis, the author of The Challenge Culture: Why the Most Successful Organizations Run on Pushback. He is the chairman of Dunkin Brands. And so, you know, what's interesting about that is the title always caught me. I thought that was sort of an interesting way to bring in this idea that how do you get your people, your staff, your coworkers, how do you get people talking? How do you get them to feel comfortable enough to push back? Because that's tough. I'm sorry, in this environment where everyone's sort of clawing and trying to figure out how they're going to get to the next spot, sometimes you don't want to put yourself out there. So Travis has an incredibly effective way to get people talking. And building on the fact that, you know, it is partially a coffee company, Dunkin Brands, also some ice cream, he has something called a coffee chat where he wants to engage people and get them to talk about real stuff. And he doesn't put any limitations on it. But it is interesting what he finds out. And it's also interesting to give people that presence, to give them that ability to articulate what's on their minds is really effective. So here is more of our interview with Nigel Travis. In those two-way conversations, in those coffee chats, you also make sure that things are civil. You don't, because you basically in the beginning of the book say that the discourse should be civil. Mm-hmm. And that seems like, first of all, so British, and I love that. I mean, not in your Houses of Parliament, which seems very non-civil.
Uncivil yes.
Indeed. I wonder how you manage that in an age where civility seems to be going a bit down the drain.
Civility is reinforced if you show that you're vulnerable and you're willing to expose yourself. And I think it's something I kind of do naturally now. I mean, I will say to someone now, I believe we should do this or that. And the next question I seem to say automatically is, what do you think of that? And I think civility is so important. I'm appalled with some of the stuff I see. I mean, you know, you sit and watch, it doesn't matter which channel, Fox News, CNN, you know, they're all shouting at each other. So in the coffee chats, it is a very civil conversation, and you actually hear what people are saying. Isn't that kind of radical to actually hear what people are saying?
It's interesting because you also said that you are willing to engage on tough topics. And it's fascinating to hear people say, well, off the record, here's what I think. But they don't trust the organization or the higher ups because they feel like nothing's going to change. Why would I put myself out there? It sounds to me like your willingness to hear someone's worries, complaints, anxieties could raise some tough issues. So in that experience, did you ever have to tackle something that you were surprised by, had to act on? Did anything get raised up for you that you said, oh my God, I didn't know that, I have to do something?
We did have someone who, after a coffee chat, said, could I have a chat with you? They didn't want to put it out publicly. And the issue wasn't big, but the person just wanted to raise it. We also had a few cultural issues in some other countries, because sometimes the American culture doesn't match the local one. And we delved into it, worked it out, and it was a very nice accommodation because, other countries look at it very differently from America. Sometimes you just have to get all the facts on the table, recognize that our culture here in America, and despite the fact I sound very British, but that may be a different cultural approach from what happens, say, in Italy or the Middle East or somewhere else.
So when you have these conversations, how do you filter it back to your management team? How do you do that?
Well, that's important. And what I do is I actually have an independent person who is young from corporate communications who takes the notes. I don't take the notes. She writes the notes. And we don't say that Jill said this or Fred said that. It's this point went on and the group discussed this point. And the group's view was, now, it's not necessarily a statistically valid sample because some of the group may have been quiet. And then what I do is I send the notes to our leadership team. And then if it's something that's really critical, I'll go back to my follow-up. I'll follow up and say, what are we doing about this?
How important do you think in your leadership the role of speaking out in the public square about things going on? You got into a bit of hot water talking about immigration. And I'm wondering how you feel that corporate America's responsibility towards speaking out when you see something you disagree with. It used to be 100 years ago when, companies were kind of muddling along and doing their business. No one wanted to take a stand. How do you view that responsibility as a C-suite executive?
Well, it's fascinating because I think I got nailed twice in 1 year. One was on immigration, as you point out, and that's in the book. Another one was about minimum wage. This country has a remarkably open government. I mean, I don't think it's anywhere else in the world that you can go down to Washington and meet people who are truly important and talk to them in a very open and candid manner. So I think this country doesn't get the credit it deserves for that. And it doesn't really matter which administration. I've been down there in the Obama administration and talked to very important people. In this administration, I've had excellent dialogues with people like Secretary Acosta, the Labor Secretary, the Small Business Administrator, Linda McMahon, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's very open. I think where some CEOs go wrong is they say but don't do. I think you have to go down. You have to talk to people in Washington, or it could be Sacramento if it's California, or you could go down to the state house in Boston. You have to go and see people, talk about it. It's no good just going in on the radio or the TV and saying this is what needs to happen. You need to explain your point of view. I think in many ways it goes back to civility. I think CEOs do have to stand and give their views. I think government needs to hear it. But the key thing is government, whatever government is. It could be the EU, it could be the White House, it could be a state senate or the governor or whatever. You need to say it to them face to face so that they clearly understand your point. And I think a good example of that is, we have franchisees. We represent franchisees. I've got 2,000 globally. And when the whole tax reform bill was going through, we made the point about the pass-through taxation, and the end result was I think we made a difference by making our point. But it was only by constantly going there and talking. And again, I reinforce, I found both parties to be amazingly receptive to talking to people.
I have to just pivot a little bit here because you have a section on napping, which I thought was the most wonderful thing for someone who wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, you do, do you?
Yes, there we go. We're high-fiving. It's exhausting to have 2 o'clock roll around for me. So talk about your napping habits.
Well, yeah, I mean, I tend not to sleep too long. I like to go to bed at 10.
10, that's already an hour past my bedtime.
Well, okay.
There you go.
So I go to bed at, say, 10. I tend to read the Times in London, so I get tomorrow's news today. Mm-hmm. And then I tend to wake up 4 or 5, something like that. And then if you work really hard, by about 2, you feel tired.
Exhausted.
So I have a nap. I've done it in the office. I do it at home. When I travel, and I've always traveled a lot, I mean, last few years, and it'll probably drop a bit now, I've done 140 flights a year. I can sometimes nap 3 or 4 times a day for a quick burst of 10 minutes.
Here's why you have to nap, everyone. Napping increases your alertness. Napping improves your accuracy. Napping helps you make better decisions. Napping fattens your bottom line. Napping boosts your creativity. Okay, we'll get back to our interview in just a second. Meanwhile, while you're on break, go to JillOnMoney.com, and there you can subscribe to our podcast. It's called Jill on Money. Isn't that cool? Jill on Money podcast, available. A little different than the show. Check it out. Okay, we'll be right back.
Do I invest here? Should I put my money there? Jill Schlesinger can help you. Back to Jill on Money.
You're back with Jill on Money. I am Jill Schlesinger. So happy to be chatting with you. All right. So this is the moment where we do the shameless plugging. My new book is coming out. February 5th is the drop date. But you can order it right now. It is called The Dumb Things Smart People Do with Their Money. And if some of you recognize yourselves in some of the stories I tell, that's because I was able to use a lot of the calls that we've received from you, a lot of the emails. Yes, of course, we changed names, but we really wanted to get a representative grouping of the questions that we receive all the time. And then what I did was try to say, here are the common mistakes that many people fall prey to. And the other cool thing is that we are able to tap into some of our previous guests. And when you read the book, you'll see that there is Mitu Storoni, who is the neuro-ophthalmologist who just was amazing. You'll see that Annie Duke is mentioned. You'll see that I think Jason Zweig is mentioned, some of these past guests. And so when you go and buy the book, and you just do that by going to JillOnMoney.com, click on the link for the book. Actually, it's right on the front door. Mark popped it right on the front door of the site. So JillOnMoney.com, you'll scroll to the bottom. You can see all the info about the book events that are coming up. I thought last year one of my favorite shows of all of last year was the Annie Duke show, because she wrote this book called Thinking in Bets. She's a professional poker player, and just so many of the things that she talked about, some of the emotional traps that we fall into, were incredibly useful. So, you know, I'm pretty sure because you listen to this show, you are kind of in the mode of let me take control of my financial life. This is one way to do so. The dumb things smart people do with their money. Okay, now, enough of my yakking. Let me get back to our interview with Nigel Travis of Dunkin Brands.
Well, here's another example. It's not napping. Sometimes I'm in a meeting, and say it's an intense meeting, and let's make up a subject. We're in a meeting talking about Indonesia, just to pick a country, right? And it's an intense meeting trying to figure out what to do. I will deliberately go the 70 yards from my office to the bathroom and then come back. I will think of something that's completely different just by that sheer detachment from the problem. And one of the things I talk about somewhere in the book, I think, is hovering above a problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's a form of hovering. You take yourself out of the immediate challenges and you give yourself a perspective, and that allows you to look outside to in.
Are there environments where the questioning is hard? For example, whatever. I'm a voyeur. I love asking questions. I'm interested. You can tell already, right? But there are a lot of people who feel shyness.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get a shy introvert to feel comfortable with a questioning culture?
Well, good question. And I find sometimes it's about your own exposure. I talk in the book about a psychological tool that's been around forever, and it's very simple, called the Johari window.
Mm-hmm.
And there's basically two axes on the way they measure people's arena. One is feedback and one's exposure. And I think you need to expose yourself, which, by the way, doesn't mean taking any clothes off. It means showing you a little bit vulnerable. I mean, you may tell a story about how you screwed up at work today, and then you perhaps can go in through your weakness to them, and people then laugh about it. It makes them more relaxed. So I think I'm fortunate. I'm British. Self-deprecation is something that we're quite good at in Britain.
All right, let me do a quick. You should go. We'll have a link to the book, The Challenge Culture: Why the Most Successful Organizations Run on Pushback, and there's also a great checklist at the end for creating a challenging culture, which I think is awesome. But before we let you go, I've got a lightning round of questions that I wrote down before.
This is always frightening.
I know, right? What's your favorite fast food?
Oh, that's a tough one. Well, I have to say, going back in my time, I think besides all our Dunkin products, I'd say the Whopper.
The Whopper. Okay. What's your favorite fast food that is British only?
It's a great concept in Britain called Leon.
Okay.
Which is fresh, healthy fast food.
Okay. Very good, Mark says. Okay. My favorite fast food in the UK, I don't even think it exists anymore, Spud You Like.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't it? Jackets?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you should say that because I went somewhere the other day and they had the Spuds, and I was thinking, wow, you don't see many of those now.
That's right. Spud You Like. Fantastic.
Every pub used to have them.
It's amazing. Okay, let's get into that. Favorite British ale?
I'm not really a beer drinker.
What are you? What's your beer of choice? What's your drink of choice?
Red wine. And
what an
hold on,
effete snob. I love that.
And bourbon.
Okay, favorite bourbon?
Woodford Reserve. I used to live in Louisville.
Really? I'm very partial to the Widow Jane. I like that. And I also like, I just had a new one. I had to think about the name of that. I'll get back to you.
Here's a great idea for a party. I've done it.
Yeah.
You get like 12 bourbons.
Yeah.
Invite people around. It's a great way to get the party going.
Favorite Baskin Robbins flavor?
Oh, I'm incredibly boring.
Don't say vanilla.
I am.
Jeez Louise, he's so British. My favorite, Jamocha almond fudge. Always a classic. Favorite Dunkin' donut?
Boring again. Glazed.
Oh, my God.
I know.
Unbelievable.
I need to change.
You really do. You were also the CEO of Papa John's. Best slice of pizza in New York City. Do you know? Do you have one?
No, but I'll tell you the best pizza at Papa John's is barbecue chicken.
That is disgusting.
I clearly need to think more. I need to challenge my food choices more.
Don't you think? Okay. Last but not least, before you leave, we started the program. I said, what was your best career or financial decision? And you said getting this advice to leave HR and go run a business. What about your worst?
Well, probably I have to go back to the Blockbuster example where we could have bought Netflix for $50 million.
Stop it.
Viacom said, why don't you go out and buy it? And we said, no, it's a fad. And, you know, whatever day you look at it, Reed Hastings, who's done an unbelievable job there, I think it's now worth $160 billion. So I'm not sure it was a vice, but I am accountable along with some others for that decision.
I would say that every major media company had that same opportunity and passed. Well, thanks so much to Nigel Travis. It was really great to meet him. The book is called The Challenge Culture. You should check it out. It's Jill on Money, and when we return, we're going to start talking about your financial questions. We'll be right back.
Follow Jill on Twitter and Instagram for more personal finance content. Just use the handle @JillOnMoney. Now, back to the show.
You're back with Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, this is the show for you. Not only do we answer your questions, your emails, your voice questions, because we have you on the air live, we also have great guests. And if you have an idea about a guest that you're dying to hear about, you know, like someone you run across or some topic that we haven't covered, just send us an email. We love your input. The email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. Askjill@jillonmoney.com. Hey, we have an Instagram account. Mark, did you see that who I followed on the Instagram account yesterday? Say Hey Willie. That's Ingrid's new dog. So we work with somebody who got an adorable dog. I don't have my dogs on Instagram. I sort of feel like it's kind of in the mold of, having your kids, your like toddlers and children be in beauty pageants. It seems exploitive, but this dog is cute. So I will encourage people to follow my friend's dog's Instagram account, Say Hey Willie. I think it's Say Hey the Norwich is the handle. And it's pretty cute. All right, enough of that. Let's get to your questions. Gil writes, I am 65 years old. My wife is 68. I'm making $124,000 plus a federal pension of $37,000 a year. My wife makes $172,000. Look at these guys. They're both funding their retirement plans to the max of $24,500 each. That's going up to, is that going up to $25,000 this year, isn't it? Or is it $24,500? Now I'm losing my mind. Anyway, she has $450,000 in her 401k. I have $300,000 in my Section 457 plans. We own two homes. One's worth $650,000 to $700,000 with a $210,000 mortgage. The other $1 million mortgage of $460,000. Total equity of about $1 million. We also have $400,000 in savings. Of that, $150,000 in closed-end mutual funds. People may not understand that closed-end mutual fund just means it has actually it trades on a day-to-day basis. It has a fixed valuation. It doesn't trade NAV, and it's a little bit trickier. Okay, I put that aside. Social Security will be a lot smaller because of my federal pension. My current employer will give me a pension of 2.5 more years, $1,300 a month, and that I will just add to my federal pension of $37,000 a year. Very good. My wife is retiring next summer. She will receive a pension of about $4,500 per month. She'll draw her Social Security at 70, and that'll be a maximum, right? Because remember, if you wait till 70, you max out. Her Social Security at age 70, $3,800 a month. Whew. We have one car. We have one car loan, zero interest, $24,000. My question: how do we minimize or reduce the impact on our taxes? What would be the best strategy moving forward? I'm thinking to sell one home, pay off the other, roll over my 457 and my wife's to a Roth IRA to minimize taxes long term. Thank you. Sincerely, Gil. This is a great question. Okay. Let's presume. All right. So you probably don't have any other IRA accounts, which is good. So what you could do is after you retired, I wouldn't necessarily do that today because I think you're going to drop down in your tax bracket. Let's think about this. You'll have your $37,000, $4,755, $50. I might do this when she retires. We'll see. So what you could do is when your income is lower, when you're both retired, and it's not going to be zero because you're going to have this period of time, I think, where you're still making a lot of money. But I think you're in the 24% tax bracket when that happens. And then you could convert some portion of your retirement accounts. And what you want to do is you want to convert that into a Roth a little bit at a time, keeping within your tax bracket of 24%. Remember that 24%, it goes up to about $315,000, a little more for this year, 2019. But if you do that, now you're going to pay the tax with the money you have in cash, and you will have a Roth IRA and no required minimum distributions, which is big. In terms of selling the home, I wouldn't sell the home and pay off the mortgage, actually. I might sell the home and maybe I would use those dollars to kind of keep your liquidity up. You didn't mention exactly how much the rate is on your of interest, but I wouldn't be necessarily so fast to pay off the mortgage. If your real number one goal is to minimize your tax hit, then that is about converting your retirement money into Roth retirement money. And to do so, you're going to need some cash on hand. So maybe you'll be able to do it because it looks, as you said, you have plenty of money. But I think that you should be very careful about doing this. It takes a little bit of maneuvering. You may want to talk to a tax planner or an accountant or a financial planner. The easiest way to think about it is look at your income, see when it drops down, pull up those income tax brackets for 2019 and 2020. You can look at them and you can ballpark how much money you can convert without blowing up into another tax bracket. I think that that's where you want to go. Again, don't be so fast to pay off that mortgage. It may not be worth it for you. All right? Okay. When we return, we are going to take more of your questions. While we're paying some bills, go onto the website, JillOnMoney.com. And what? You can get the book. Just click on the book link, pre-order The Dumb Things Smart People Do With Their Money. We'll be right back. You're back with Jill on Money. Before we call it quits for the day, and it's just the day, man. We work 7 days a week here at Jill on Money. You should see the text exchanges between me and Mark over the weekends. Nutty. It's just nutty. All right, some questions. Curtis writes that he lives in Chicago. He's been doing research about financial advisors. His wife has one through the private client group at JP Morgan Chase. I doubt that's an advisor. Maybe it is. I bet it's a broker. But anyway, he says, our situation will get complicated when we semi-retire. I have part of a family business to sell. My wife has property to sell. I'm paying 1.35% to manage a $600,000 account. We're going to need estate and tax and legal counsel going forward. Who could help with these wealth management issues? Look, who can help is probably someone who is a certified financial planner, a CPA who's got that PFS designation. Also, the fee-only financial advisors out there from NAPFA, NAPFA.org, NAPFA.org. You really need someone who's got planning background, a planning background, not an asset management background. As soon as they hear asset management, man, they're going after you hard. Okay? All right, let me do one last one. Hurry up. Okay, here we go. Here's another one. Approach to hiring a financial planner. My spouse and I currently have our 5-digit retirement funds with Merrill Lynch, Bank of America Merrill Lynch. We are charged 5-digit retirement funds. Okay, I had to figure that out. Less than $100,000. They are charged 1.5% annually. And he pulls the money out of the market. It converts it to cash when the market goes down, manages funds so there's less risk, blah, blah, blah. I have no interest in managing my portfolio. What's a reasonable fee? Okay, John, quit it. Get out of Merrill Lynch. First of all, Merrill Lynch probably, I think they have a robo-advisor. I'm not even sure. But they might have an automatic advisor platform. If not, check out Vanguard and Charles Schwab, which have these fantastic automated investment platforms, or Betterment, which used to be the sponsor of my podcast. They've got an investment management platform. And instead of 1.5%, you pay 0.25%. So check those out. Those are often called robo-advisors. I think that's the way to go. All right, that's it. That's the program. If you have any questions, we're always here for you. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. And you can always hop on to JillOnMoney.com. Read, listen, watch. Sign up for our free weekly newsletter and pre-order the book, for goodness sakes. The Dumb Things Smart People Do With Their Money. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.